Guys, I gotta tell you, I'm starting to remember why I left my wife and kids in the first place. Because this is awful, honestly. And this is the whole way that I tried to explain it to my wife for years. I am introverted. I have something called a social battery, And so I can only really talk to and be around people for like 20 minutes before I start to not be at my peak performance, And I get tired, I get irritable, and I just can't do it. I cannot. And so having to be around the same people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constantly, just makes me go crazy. And so you wouldn't want me to be around anyway, because I wouldn't be any fun. I wouldn't be able to do anything, And one of the only things that helps me when I'm sort of get into this state of, I get overstimulated. And when I get overstimulated, one of the only things that helps me is drinking excessively. And so I have to, otherwise I have nothing else, and so that's the thing. I can be around you guys if you want me to, but I have to be able to drink also, because that's sort of like my medication. Otherwise, it's not going to be possible. I'll jump off a bridge, And so I was like, that's the trade-off here. And they would say, well, when you're drunk, you're a blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, then I just can't be around you guys. It's like I'm giving you a very, very, very simple proposition here. It's like that meme where the guy's like, he furrows his brow and he's like, I make you a trade. You get a father, I get alcohol and gambling, And so that's just the whole thing that I've sort of been dealing with, because, you think in your head that it's going to be so fun and so exciting, oh, we're going to be on the run, I'm going to make off with my son, hey, that's another Dr. Seuss, keep it in your pants, pal, because that's mine, make off with my son. What was it? Make off with my son. I'm on the run with my son. That's what I've been thinking, if I get away from this whole ordeal and sign a publishing deal, with Penguin Books or whatever. Do they still write books? I don't know. But if any publishers are reading this and are like, yeah, let's get this guy a book deal, even better would be A24 giving me a movie deal, but, whatever. On the run with my son. That's pretty good, right? But, you think about, when you see movies and things about this stuff, it's always like, oh, Bonnie and Clyde, it's all so much excitement. You only really get to see the exciting parts of the whole ordeal. But there's a lot of time in a day. I don't know if you guys have ever realized just how much time is in one day. I get up pretty early. I get up around 3 o'clock, 4 in the morning. And this kid doesn't get up until 1 p.m. So what am I supposed to do the entire day? Do you realize if you're... This is what people also don't understand. It's like, it's hard for me too. It's hard for me to be unemployed, because do you time goes by a lot faster when you have a job and when you have stuff to do. When you're like me, you don't have anything to do, you don't have a family, then it's like you feel every second passing by. It's like, especially now that the kid's in the motel room, it's boring. And every excruciating second, that's the other reason why I have to drink. Because then otherwise it's like, what am I supposed to do with all this time? Oh, so it's just been awful. Not to mention the kid's a fucking asshole. I mean, why are you so mean to me? That's what I want to ask him. I give you everything. You know, I've been the one who's driving you around all this way. Okay, gas is pretty expensive, by the way. And remember, I don't have a job. So it's I don't think he realizes the sacrifice that I've been making doing this for him. Also, that he can have memories with his father. That's the other thing. I'm going to die, pal. You know? So this is for you. This is so that when you grow up, you can have a funny story to tell to the hot chick. You know, you can be like, hey, did I ever tell you about the time my dad kidnapped me? And then everybody in the party can be like, what? And you'll be the most popular guy at the party, you know? So I've just been kind of trying to like juggle that balance of like, and this is fatherhood. You know, this is quintessential fatherhood, trying to juggle the balance between wanting to give this kid good memories and also hating him and hating being around him and hating every second of every day and wishing that you didn't have a kid. You know, can those two things coexist? Yes, they can. You know, and that's why, honestly, you know, like, for example, this kid eats so much also. And it's like, I don't have the money to feed you 4 meals a day. This kid eats 4 meals a day. And it started to get us into trouble because we went to a White Castle last night. Because honestly, it's like, you know, I keep saying we should probably switch motels every night. Because then also that gives us another thing to do. We can just drive around. You know, I like driving. I think driving is kind of fun. So I try to fill my day with as much driving as possible. And then, of course, he has a fucking hissy bitch fit. You know, like, why can I want to go home? You know, I want to go back to mom. It's like, oh, so all of a sudden you like mom now? Where did this come from? And so last night he said, we were finally, because I go to bed early also. And I cannot, if I'm sharing a motel room with this kid, you know, he was like, can we go to Best Buy and buy me a PS5? And I was like, no. Where do you think I have the money for the PS5? Why didn't you grab it before we ran off from Uncle Bill's house? And he said, well, I didn't know that we were going to be gone for so long. I thought we were just going to get ice cream. And so maybe this was a mistake. But I did run off to the Best Buy and buy him a PS5 so that he could have something to do. But I have a Best Buy rewards membership. And so I was telling the guy my information, and I thought it would be funny. Because it's kind of a funny story. Like when you commit a crime, not that I did, but you know, usually it's pretty interesting. And so I was just trying to tell the guy, you know, hey, it's been kind of funny because I actually kidnapped my son the other day, you know, and this guy was just a total lobotomized nobody, you know, loser. Because he didn't even register what I said. He was just like, oh yeah, that's cool, you know. And I was like, yeah, it is. You know, the cops, everybody's looking for me. And he was like, oh, yeah. And so I was just kind of trying to get his attention. And I said, should I kill him? And that finally made him sort of, he was like, huh? And I said, yeah, should I kill the kid? And there was sort of a long, awkward silence. And then I broke the tension. I said, I'm just kidding, you know, and punched him on the bicep, you know. And so I put the PS5 on one of my like credit cards. I don't even know how many credit cards I have now, but credit cards that's great. But by the way, pro tip for anybody, if you don't have money, get a credit card. Because then you have money, and you also, it's like free money, you know. Okay, hang on. I'm waiting for him to text me because he said that he was going to text me when he got up. And you know the other thing about all this that's just kind of interesting, I guess it's interesting, but having a kid really makes you sort of realize that nobody really needs to be alive, because I remember when my son was born. I wasn't there, but when I got the text that my son had been born, it's sort of, first of all, I didn't really feel anything, but it was also like I knew what life was like without you in it. When the fact that you're you, when you're born and you grow up, you sort of feel like you were always there, if that makes sense, But then when you have a kid, you're like, I can remember specifically, and I don't really want to I don't mean to get too graphic here, but like, I remember specifically the moment of conception that created this kid. And like, it was good, but was it good enough to justify making a human being? It was like, yeah, we had some pizza and then, I don't even remember what was on the TV, Bar Rescue, I think, or something. And it was certain, I wouldn't say it was I wouldn't say it was even one of the top 20 times, so the fact that then that makes a life, and then you see every day, well, I don't see every day, I would see him like every couple of weeks, but every day that this kid is walking around, and you see them and they're sort of like a bag of flesh, and you're like, wow, this kid really exists because of some mediocre sex. Isn't that sad? And so it's like, when it comes down to like that one very, very small decision, it's like, why are you alive at all? It just feels useless and stupid. And so that's why I think that I have really had sort of, not that I don't care, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot to me either way. Because it's like, again, we could just make another one, the world was no different. The world was no different before you were born than after it, I wouldn't say, it's not like I'd be robbing the world of anything. I mean, he hasn't really displayed any interesting talents or skills, I guess I just don't get it. And everybody was like, oh, don't worry, you'll feel the love for your kid when you hold your kid for the first time. Maybe that's maybe it's because I was not there. I don't think I even saw the kid until he had hair by the time I saw him for the first time. And I was like, telling you, it's just, and also, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep talking about this, but why does the expectation fall on me to have any responsibility? Anyway, I'm just wondering why I did the whole thing. And I even texted, I texted his mother the other night. And I said, look, can I just give him back and we can call it a day? Please, can we just forget about all this? And then she sent this, of course, a long, meandering text message back about how she's going to ruin my life. And, she's going to make sure that I'm under the jail and, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I was the Best Buy situation. So I was at Best Buy buying a PS5 for the kid with my credit card. And I made the whole joke to the cashier, which he didn't think was funny. And I was like, that was funny. So you clearly... I thought about going up to the manager and saying that guy's high or something because he didn't laugh at a very funny joke. Um, and I looked over. I'm very good at being able to tell when somebody is suspicious of me or looking at me funny. So I looked over at the loss prevention guy, you know, and I saw that he was kind of, something aroused him. And so I made sure that I held this receipt. I said, can I have the paper receipt? And I fluttered the receipt all around like this while I was leaving. And I was like, see you later. And I was flapping it around so that he would see the receipt, And normally I feel like it's like the loss prevention guy. So the loss prevention guy, basically, he's got this big jacket, and it's a nice jacket. I really enjoyed it. I've been looking for a jacket like that. He came out, he walked in front of me and literally blocked me from leaving the store. And he said, hang on. Nope. Sorry. Almost thought I loved my son for a minute, but I don't. No, actually, I was waiting to hear if that was a red-whiskered bulbul that was making the bird sound, but it's not. So the loss prevention guy blocks my path from leaving. And he's like, hey, man, how you doing? And I was like, hey, okay, have a nice day. And tried to leave. And he was like, you mind if I just check something for you? And I was like, check what? And he was like, oh, it's nothing. It's just with purchases, we like to check stuff. Make sure that everything's all good. And I'm like, do I have to? Because I just bought this and I had the receipt right here. And he said, it's no problem. There's nothing is the problem. It's just going to take a couple of minutes. So if you wouldn't mind, we can just go back to the office. We have coffee back there. We have water back there. You can sort of relax. And so I was like, oh, thank God, because the kid is in the car waiting for me to come back out, and I would do anything to have fun. I was just going to walk around here and just look at random crap for a couple more minutes. So that's a great trick that I learned when I was married. Just go to the store. A lot of times what I would do is I would take all the eggs and throw them in the trash, just so that I could be like, hey, we need more eggs, and go to the store. Just to get some time to myself. So, I decided, I went back with the loss prevention guy into the office. And he closed the door behind me. And I said, so what's your name? Because I'm trying to be personable, and I like to get to know people. I said, what's your name? And he said, oh, that's not really important. I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, that's Bill. And he said that like he was making it up, So I said, okay, Bill, so what is the problem here? And he said, thanks so much for your cooperation. Just sit tight. I'll be right back. And he leaves. So I'm enjoying my coffee, which is very bad, by the way. But thankfully, they also had, I asked the guy if they had any salt. Because pro tip, if you have coffee and it sucks and it's bad, put some salt in it. It's like a magic coffee wizard thing. Because it just makes the coffee good. I don't know how it works. Salt is amazing. The other night I was making some spaghetti and meatballs and it tasted like asshole. And I said, put a little salt in there. And it was slightly less bad. It was amazing. So I was drinking my mediocre coffee. And I look over at a cork board that's on the wall. And I see a picture of me. And so now I'm realizing that I'm in a pickle. How many times? Fuck! When is this kid gonna get up? I'm getting a little worried because I gave him some sleeping pills last night, so that he would go to sleep when I went to sleep. You know. I'm sure he's fine though. He's kind of chubby. So I think that probably his metabolism, you know. I asked ChatGPT what the dosage would be given his weight, and I sort of guesstimated, you know. But also I'm bad at judging weight because, boy, I was about to make the most insensitive joke that a human being could possibly make. And I'm so glad I stopped myself, because Dan Henschel canceled would have been the headline. So I look at the cork board. There's a picture of me. And I realize I'm in a pickle. And I'm like, hey, get me out of here. You know, don't eat me. I'm in a delicious cucumber that's been soaked in vinegar for a long time. How'd I get in here? How'd I get in a cucumber? Like I'm literally in a pickle. We'll workshop it. Loss prevention guy comes back in, but I don't know why all the loss prevention guys wear those big stupid yellow coats. It's like, you know, it's May, and it was a little. I shouldn't. It was a little bit. It was not. I wouldn't say it was hot, you know, but I also wouldn't say it was cold. It was what's in between warm and hot, or cold? What's in between hot and cold? Warm. It was warm. Loss prevention guy comes back in, and I say, can I ask what this is about? And he says, thank you so much for waiting for us. It's just going to be a little minute longer. We're just checking something with the receipt. And I said, okay, because I'm starting to worry. That's a picture of me right there on the cork board. And so I'm starting to worry that maybe you think that, like, you called the cops or something because you recognized me. And he stumbled a little bit. He sort of was like, oh, ha, no. So I said, okay, are you sure? And then he said, oh, yeah, no, we're just checking something with the receipt. And I said, okay. And then I said, do you have any more coffee? I'd really love some more coffee. And he said, yeah, sure, I'll get you a cup right now. And I said, could you make sure that it's hot, hot, hot? And he said, yeah, I'll brew you another batch right now with this shitty coffee maker. He didn't say that, but it was a shitty coffee maker, and it sucked, the coffee. You know, so man, I could go on a whole rant about coffee machines too, because I just don't get it. Why did everybody decide that this is the drink? Why did everybody decide this is the drink that we want to be the foundation of our society? You know? Anyway, he starts, you know, pressing the thing. And we sit there in kind of excruciating silence for a long time. And at this point, I am certain that he has called the cops, because the cops take a very long time to get places. And there's no way that they're checking anything with the receipt, because I have the receipt. It's in my pocket. And also, I have the PS5. So the coffee starts sputtering out of the machine, and going. And he takes a cup, and he takes the thermos, pours it into the cup, and it's nice and hot. It's steaming hot. You can see the steam coming off when he pours it into the thing. And he walks over to me with the cup. And he says, "Here you go." Reaches out, hands it to me. And I say, "Oh, thanks so much." Splat! And I throw the hot coffee in his face. And he goes, "Ah!" And he starts stumbling over to the mini fridge. And I don't really know what to do, because honestly, I didn't really think that far ahead. So I just grabbed his face like this, and I was just going like this, and he was like, "Ah!" And so the whole time I'm doing this, and I'm like, what do I do? So eventually, I just took the glass thermos and hit him with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Except now they're gonna have to fix their coffee maker, because it is broke as hell, because I smashed it on his fucking head. But that's all right. They needed a new one anyway, so you're welcome. He smashed it over the head, and that did barely even, this is the thing too, that people don't realize. It's different from in the movies. In the movies, that would have made him pass out and be completely immobilized. But this one, he just went, "Ow!" And what the hell did you do that for? So I was like, shit, So I started just looking around for any, because remember, this is sort of a scuttlebutt, So now I'm looking for anything that's in the office that I can use. So I grab a stapler and just staple his head, and that doesn't do anything. So then I grab a pen, the thing that pens go into, and just start hitting him with that, and that's not doing anything, So I'm sort of just feeling around. There's a little stress ball, but I hit him with that, and it just bounces right off because it's a foam thing, What were some other things that I tried that were in the room? I tried everything that was in that damn room, I'm telling you. Paper. I don't know. Just started hitting with the paper. I hit him with the other part of the coffee maker, the part that's not glass. That didn't do anything. And the whole time he was just getting more and more and more annoyed. So then finally I stopped hitting him with anything. And I said, okay. Okay. Give me your jacket. Give me your jacket. And he said, what? And I said, yeah, give me your jacket. That's a nice jacket. I want it. So he's like, yeah, whatever, man. Because I've been kind of attacking him like a crazy person, So I put on his jacket and I give him my clothes. And I say, put on my clothes. And he does. And then I look over into the cup, the pen cup, and there's a pair of scissors. So I take the scissors and I start cutting off his hair. Snip, snip, like that. And then I take a Scotch tape dispenser and I use the both sides, the trick where you sort of wrap it around. I use both sides of it to tape the hair onto my head. See where this is going? And so I ran out of the place. And I tried to keep my head down like this so that people wouldn't see that I was not the loss prevention guy. You know, and to all the people that worked there that I saw, I just was like, I'm going to lunch, I'm going to lunch, I'm going to lunch. See you later, I'll be right back. I got to go do something. And then I get in the car where my son is waiting completely ungratefully, you know, and speed off. Now, here's a great illustration of my entire point. This entire thing only took about 20 minutes. And we went right when the Best Buy opened. We went right at 10 a.m. So I get out of that whole ordeal, and I'm like, surely that must have killed at least a couple hours. It's barely 10:30. What the fuck am I supposed to do with the rest of the day now? Do you see what I mean? Like, even this kind of stuff that is exciting when you explain it to people, it's like, what do I do at 11 o'clock? What do I do at 11:30? We can't just eat all day. We can't just drive around aimlessly, you know? This is the whole thing. And that's why I would encourage anybody, if you're thinking about doing something like this, don't, because it's boring. Honestly, it's boring. You get those couple of little moments of excitement, you know, and then it's like, now what? So I don't know. I think here's the other thing. Ultimately, nobody really cares about this in terms of, you know, like, the thing about Amber Alerts, or really the police in general, is that, like, they give a shit for a little bit, but if they don't find you, they just give up. So I don't know. I mean, I sort of expected it was going to be more of like a cat and mouse game, like in the movies, you know, and I'd be constantly on the run, but they're barely interested, you know. The other day, I tried to call, because I was getting so bored, I tried to call the police and say, hey, I got an anonymous tip that the Amber Alert guy is, you know, at this Best Buy. And they were like, okay, thank you. Could tell they didn't even care. I just don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. Don't know what the hell I'm doing.